Good morning from the European Chemicals Agency, and welcome to a new webinar focused on the upcoming registration deadline. My name is Javier Sanchez, and I work for the Directorate of Registration here at ECA. In the last weeks and months, we've had a series of webinars mainly focused on lead registrants, the different activities that lead registrants need to carry out for this registration deadline. But this time, this webinar is focused on all the other member registrants who are not the lead. So we hope you find it very useful. I will explain later on the agenda. We'll go through the agenda of the webinar. But before doing that, I will go through some practicalities on how to follow this webinar using this tool that you have in front of you. I will speak about the audio broadcast, then how to interact during this event, how to make questions, how can you expect the answers, and then some words about the ECA help desk. Finally, I will go through the agenda of the webinar. Some words about the audio broadcast. Hopefully by now you can all hear me. You will see there a window that is launched automatically with the audio broadcast. You can select the volume. In case you cannot hear anything, well, hopefully then at least you can read the instructions there, and you will need to switch on the sounds of your computer, make sure that the speakers are on or that your headphones are plugged in. In the webinar, there is no two-audio communication, so you cannot speak to us. You can only hear us. However, you can indeed interact, and we encourage you to interact during this webinar. I will explain now in the following slide how you can actually interact with us during the whole webinar. You can see on your right hand in your screen the list of panelists and presenters, and then also a button there that says Q&A. If you click on that button, the Q&A panel will open, and there you can just type any question you might have about the content of this webinar. When doing so, please make sure that you select all panelists. You type your question, which is has to be a maximum of 256 characters, and then hit the button Send. Then we will reply to your question, so please wait for the answer. You can submit any questions you may have about the content of this webinar between now and until approximately 12:20 Helsinki time. That's when the presentations of the webinar will be running. In any case, you can always ask any question after the webinar, coming, like always, through our help desk and filling the help desk form. For all the questions that we receive, we have a team of experts from our ECA help desk and also from the Directorate of Registration who will go through your questions and reply. They will reply to you directly through the Q&A panel. And in case you submit your question through our ECA help desk, then you will receive the answer by email. So if you submit a question via this Q&A panel, please monitor the panel, because you will receive there definitely an answer from us. And that means that you need to remain logged in until you receive the question. We make the promise that we will reply to all the answers until 2 o'clock Helsinki time. And all those, in case that we have some questions pending, you will receive your answer by email. Our ECA help desk, as I said, is always available to you for any questions you may have on the IT tools developed by the European Chemicals Agency, or on any advice you need on your REACH and CLP obligations. You have there the link to the form for the ECA help desk, and our standard procedure is that we reply to all the questions within 15 working days. So please don't doubt making use of our help desk. This webinar, as for the previous webinars, they will be published in our ECA website within 10 days approximately, and there you have the link where you can find all the previous webinars, and where you could also find this one shortly, so you can follow it afterwards in case you need to clarify something or you need to go again through the slides. And now finally the program for this webinar. So I'm now about to finalize this introduction to the webinar with the practical information I explained. And after that, my colleague Nagendra Singh will give you an overview of the dossier creation and submission. Will explain the main steps when preparing your members dossier in Euclid 5 and what you need to do in Reach IT to submit your dossier to us. After that, my colleague Elisa Sendova will explain you the important steps after dossier submission. She will provide an overview of what do we do actually with your dossier when it comes to ECA, what are the different steps for the processing that you need to be aware of, and the main points that you should pay attention to, the critical points to ensure that your registration is complete and you receive a registration number. At the end, I will come back and I will summarize and conclude this webinar. That should be around 12:20 when we finished, and during all that time, as explained before, you can submit your questions, which we will reply until 2 o'clock. So you will receive all those answers through the Q&A panel directly. That's all for this introduction. So now I give the floor to my colleague Nagendra Singh, who will explain the overview of the dossier preparation and submission. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you again, Javier. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nagendra Singh, and I work in the dossier submission and dissemination unit here at ECA. In this presentation, I'm going to give you a bit of advice on how to prepare your member dossier so that it can successfully pass the initial steps that need to be completed before the upcoming May registration deadline. So, in this presentation, we will cover information requirements for a member dossier, then on how to create a dossier by using the dossier creation wizard, also the various plugins you can use before submitting the dossier. We will then have a step-by-step look at how to confirm your membership in a joint submission in Reach IT. We will then have a look at how to submit your dossier as a member in Reach IT. And then I will be telling you about how to verify if you are using the latest version of Euclid. We begin this presentation from the stage where you have already created a substance data set. However, if you are not there yet and you need more guidance on how to use Euclid to create a substance data set, then please have a look at our webinar, General Principles of Dossier Creation and Submission, and the Industry User Manual number 6 on dossier submission. Both are available on our website in the support section. So let's have a look at the information requirements for a member dossier. As you can see on your screen, we have the information requirements for both the lead and the member. The pink sections 1 and 3 that you see on your screen are private data that needs to be submitted both by the lead and the members individually. The green sections 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8 is data submitted by the lead on behalf of the members unless the members have opted out. The yellow sections 11 and 13 are data submitted either by the lead on behalf of its members, and if that is not the case, then by the members individually. So let's have a look at the sections 1 and 3, which are the most important for a member. Section 1 is general information. Section 1.1 is where you input the substance identification. This is where the reference substance of your substance data set is located. Section 1.2 is composition. These are the constituents, impurities, and additives. Section 1.3 is identifiers. That's where you input a pre-registration or an inquiry number. Section 1.4 is analytical information. 1.7 is suppliers, but that is solely for only representatives. So what else is needed in a member dossier? Section 3, which is manufacture, use, and exposure. Section 3.1, technological process, is essentially for EU manufacturers. 3.2 is the estimated quantity that you want to register. 3.3 is sites, that is also essentially for EU manufacturers. Section 3.5 and 3.6 are a breakdown of your uses, and this can sometimes be provided to you by the lead as well. And section 3.7 is exposure scenarios. You also need section 11, guidance on safe use, if the lead is not providing this section on behalf of its members, so then the members have to provide that by themselves. And that is also the case for section 13, which is the chemical safety report. Again, if the lead is providing on your behalf, then you as a member do not need to provide that. Okay, so once you have created the dossier, once you've created the substance data set, we now move on to the dossier creation wizard and how to create the dossier. When you have the substance data set ready, you can create the dossier by right-clicking the substance in the Query tab, which is in the navigation section of your dossier. So you right-click on the substance and click on Create Dossier. After this, the dossier creation wizard is going to guide you through the administrative information that needs to be included in the dossier header. In the dossier creation wizard step 1, you have to choose one of the two templates available for a member of a joint submission. So either reach registration member of a joint submission general case or intermediates, depending of course on what you are registering. In step 2, most of the information entered in a Euclid substance data set can be flagged to be used specifically for the purpose of certain regulatory programs, or it can be flagged to have a request for confidentiality claim. The default setting in this dossier creation wizard step 2 is that none of the flagged information is going to be exported into the dossier. So for most cases, we would like to recommend to you to select all the checkboxes, making sure that all the information is included in the created dossier. In step 7, you can name the dossier as you wish. You can see the template of a member dossier of a joint submission at the top. And here, in the type of submission, you can also mention if the lead is providing the guidance on safe use and or the chemical safety report on behalf of you as a member. And it is in this step as well that you can mention your own tonnage band. Now we go to verifying the dossier before submission. Once you have created the dossier, we recommend that you use these 3 plugins. The plugins are developed so that you have the possibility to check in advance the completeness of your dossier with the TCC plugin. The information that is going to be published from your dossier by using the dissemination plugin, and the approximate invoice that is going to be issued by using the fee calculator. All these plugins are available on our Euclid website, and we would also like to recommend to you to use the latest version of these plugins when verifying your dossiers. When you want to run these plugins, you have to go to the Query tab, which, as I said, is the navigation panel. You can run the TCC plugin on the substance data set and the dossier, but the other 2 plugins, so the dissemination and the fee calculator plugin, can only be run on the created dossier itself. The way to run these plugins is that you select the substance or dossier that you want to check and right-click on it. Then select from the list of plugins the ones that you want to use. Let's have a closer look at the TCC plugin. This plugin checks most of the business rules. And I say most because some are dependent on the data from ReachIT. Hence, there is no validation of your dossier before submission for business rules. The plugin also stimulates the technical completeness check. It verifies if the minimum requirements are fulfilled, and it checks all the relevant sections and endpoints that need to be filled in based on the tonnage band that you are registering. It gives you two possible results, warnings and failures. And as I mentioned, it can be run both on the substance data set or on the created dossier. When running the TCC plugin, you get the plugin version checker at the bottom of the window. If the plugin is up to date, the status current plugin is up to date is displayed, as you see at the bottom of the screen. If you get new plugin is available message, then we suggest that you go to our Euclid webpage and install the latest version. And you can see the plugin versions numbers in step 3 of running the plugin. The current business rules version is 2.2.10, and the completeness rule version is 2.2.8. The latest TCC plugin version numbers are always published on the Euclid webpage. When running the plugin, you can filter the rules in different ways. You can, for instance, choose to see only the business rule failures, but if you use the show all failures and warnings, you can then easily see all the indications of missing information that should be addressed in your dossier before submission. And when the plugin does not detect any business rule or TCC failures, this is shown to you by these disclaimer messages, which will appear to you in the color blue. We released a new version of the TCC plugin about 3 weeks ago. This latest version did not introduce any changes to the TCC rules, but it does have a new feature incorporated, and this is called the Dossier Quality Assistant. The Quality Assistant has been developed to detect some of the most common inconsistencies in the dossier. The warning given by the assistant can refer to the fact that conflicting data has been provided or that the data has been created in an unexpected manner. The warnings can just be reminders of the need for extra caution or information on a particular topic or section in your dossier. It also provides links to additional information on how you can address the issues encountered, as well as possible explanations as to why reported inconsistencies might be justifiable in rare situations. So to summarize this new feature, the Quality Assistant does not affect the outcome of the TCC, but it helps you to identify potential shortcomings in your dossier. Here we can see the different types of results that the TCC plugin can show. The business rule and TCC failures are going to result in the failure of your dossier in ReachIT. The business rule and TCC warnings are not going to result in a failure of the dossier, but it does suggest that some information is missing from the dossier that should still be incorporated in the dossier. The disclaimers indicate that the plugin could not detect any failures in the dossier. And the dossier quality assistant warnings give recommendations on how you can improve the consistency of your dossier. We now move on to the fee calculation plugin. If you want to know in advance the invoice amount, then please run the fee calculation plugin. In step 4 of running this plugin, you get the total amount, which is the approximate amount of the expected invoice, and it also lists all the different chargeable items. A bit now about the dissemination plugin. If you want to check before submitting the dossier what information is going to be published from your dossier onto our website, you can use the dissemination plugin for this purpose. Also to remember that you can only run this on the dossier itself and not on the substance data set. When you run this plugin in Euclid, it automatically creates a filtered version of the dossier to your Euclid database. In the dissemination report, you can see a summary of the information which is or is not included in the filtered dossier. You can also go to the filtered dossier by clicking on View Dossier. After you have verified your dossier by using these 3 plugins, you can export the dossier from Euclid by right-clicking on the dossier and selecting Export. The exported I5Z file can then be sent to us via ReachIT. Okay, and moving on now to ReachIT, we will have a look at how to confirm membership to a joint submission. As a member registrant, you need to confirm your membership in the joint submission in ReachIT. In order to do so, you will need the exact name of the joint submission and the security token. And this information needs to be provided to you by the lead registrant of the joint submission. In step 1, you need to go to your ReachIT homepage, go to the tab Joint Submission, and select Confirm Membership. In step 2, as a member, you need to enter the name of the joint submission and the security token. And I would like to mention that in this step, the most common error made is entering the incorrect joint submission name or the token string. So in order to avoid that, we suggest you can simply copy and paste the information provided to you by the lead registrant. Also a reminder about the expiry of the token. These tokens have an expiry date of 30 days after they are issued. So you as a member, if you have not joined during this time, then you would need to ask the lead to provide you with a new token. In step 3, a contact has to be provided for the joint submission from the member side. If you do not have a contact already available in your contact list, you can create a new contact by going through the link Create New Contact. In step 4, you have the possibility to provide the third-party information if it is relevant to your joint submission. Again, if you do not have anything in the contact list already, you can add new information by going to the link Enter Third-Party Representative. Next, you reach the review and validation stage. Here, you can review the information you have entered in the previous steps before clicking on Joint Submission. And as you can see from your screen, the lead dossier submitted status in this example is a green tick, which means that the lead has submitted their dossier, meaning they have passed business rules. and that is an indication then that you as a member are allowed to submit your member dossier. Once you have clicked on Confirm Membership, you will see this message that your joint submission membership was successfully submitted in Reach IT along with the name of the joint submission. If you go to your message box at this stage, you will see that you have already received a message confirming your joint submission membership, and clicking on OK will take you to the joint submission details screen. On this screen, you have these tabs at the top to navigate from one section to another within the joint submission details page, and these buttons at the bottom to make changes to the details if you need to. Now we will have a look on how to submit your dossier in Reach IT. As a member, you may submit your dossier only once the joint submission has been created, membership has been confirmed by yourselves, and the lead has submitted the lead dossier. So as we saw in the previous slide, the lead dossier submitted status should be a green tick and not a cross, which would suggest that the lead has not submitted the dossier yet. So let's look at the steps that you need to follow as a member to confirm to submit your dossier. Again, in your Reach IT homepage, go to the registration/notification tab and select Submit Registration. In step 2, from the drop-down menu of submission type, select the correct type of submission that you are making. In step 3, we suggest you carefully read the declaration that the information you are provided is correct in terms of the company size, and that the substance you are registering is appropriate for registration. You also have on this page a reminder that certain information from your dossier will be disseminated on our website. Thus, it is again recommended that you use the dissemination plugin to see exactly what information from your dossier will be disseminated. In this stage, you should tick the box for joint submission and enter the name of the joint submission as well in this step. Next, you can attach the Euclid I5Z dossier file in this step. You also need to enter the information in the captcha field as a security measure. If your dossier file is larger than 20 megabytes, then you can request a larger file access code by going through the link on your screen. Once you have gone through these steps, you can click on Submit Dossier. In the next screen, you get a gist of all the information you have provided up till now. You can review the information and then click on Confirm Submission. You will then receive a message to state that the upload of your dossier was successful, and you will receive a preliminary submission number and the message that the report indicating the current status of your dossier will come to your message box shortly. So if you go to your message box at this stage, you will see that the message that your file is under examination will already be received, and you can follow the status of your dossier by going through the links in the middle of your screen. A bit now on how to check if you are using the current version of Euclid. To see the version of Euclid from the interface, go to Help or to About. If the version of Euclid you're using is 5.4.1, then this is the current version, so you can create dossiers from it, and you don't need to do anything more in terms of updating your Euclid. If that is not the case, we recommend that you do, as you see on the screen, you go to File, you go to Administrative, and you do a backup of your files. You then need to install Java 7 and upgrade your Euclid version to 5.4.1. We recommend this because versions of Euclid prior to 5.4.1 work only with Java 6, and soon updates to Java 6 will no longer be made. So this will be a security issue. If your Euclid version is not 5.4.1, then you can follow these steps to upgrade. You can use the installer for Microsoft Windows for this purpose. For Euclid 5.4.0 or any version of Euclid 5.3, you can use the upgrade option of the installer, as you see on the screen. If you're using a version older than 5.3, so any version of 5.2 or earlier, then the installer function is, the upgrade function is not valid. You would need then to install a new version of Euclid, so the new version being 5.4.1. And when installing the fresh Euclid, on page 3 of the installer, change the database name from the default value to Euclid 541 as shown on the screen, and then be careful to launch Euclid 5.4.1 using the newly created icon. Now we are preparing a Euclid frequently asked questions on this topic, which will contain much more details. So be sure to have a look at that on our Euclid website. To end this presentation, some key points. Run the TCC plugin in both the substance data set and on the dossier. Make sure that you have the latest versions of Euclid, all the plugins, Java, ReachIT, etc. Be sure to confirm membership of the joint submission. Remember that members can only submit their dossiers after lead has passed business rules. And if in any doubt, you can always contact the ECHA help desk, who will be glad to be of help. Thank you for listening. This was all from my side. I will now give the floor to my colleague, Elisa Sendova.
Hello. My name is Elisa Sendova, and I work in the dossier submission and dissemination unit at ECHA. In my presentation, I will focus on what comes next after you as a member submit your dossier in ReachIT. In addition, I will specify what are the steps which ECHA takes to process your dossier. In my part of the presentation, I will give you an overview on business rules verification step. Next, I will talk about technical and financial completeness check. Then I will explain more about the final decision you receive by ECHA. At the end of the presentation, you will get some more information on the confidentiality claim you may have in your dossier. On this slide, you can see the root of your dossier after you have uploaded it in ReachIT. Straight after submission, the dossier goes through automatic initial checks. Then comes the business rules step. The next important thing for you is to pass technical and financial completeness check, which these two will lead you to an overall completeness of your dossier. If you pass all the steps mentioned before, ECHA will send you a final decision on your registration. For those of you who have claimed some information in your dossier as confidential, we only assess it after we have given you a registration number. And at the end, we publish certain information from your dossier on ECHA's website. And before I go further, we have a deadline coming, and it's soon. Keep in mind that your dossier must pass successfully business rule step before 31st of May this year. As you already noticed in the previous slide, the first important step is the business rules step. What do you need to know about business rules? All the registration dossiers undergo administrative checks called business rules. The business rules step is a set of prerequisites that must be fulfilled before ECHA establishes that the dossier can be handled properly. When your dossier fulfills these prerequisites, it means that it can proceed further towards registration. These are initial checks that are made by Reach IT. Only once the business rule check is successful, then your dossier can be accepted for further processing. How to monitor the status of your dossier in Reach IT? You can see the status of your dossier by going to Submission Report, where you can see the past task list. If task number 4, Enforce Rules, is succeeded, that means that the business rules step has passed. You should also monitor your registration by checking the Reach IT message box. This example shows that you have received a message concerning business rules check. From the subject field of the message, you are informed that your dossier has successfully passed business rules step. And this is here for your information. Here we have the most common business rules failures according to our statistics for the last 6 months. In case of problems with the business rules step, we strongly recommend you to consult the Data Submission Manual Part 4, How to Submit Business Rules, How to Pass Business Rules. You can find the manual on ECHA's website, following the link which is shown here. You may also be interested to watch our previous webinar on Registration Process 1, Business Rules, what they are and how to pass them. You can also find it on our website. So, what if your dossier fails in business rules? Then, instead of business rules check passed, a message in your Reach IT message box, there will be message claiming decision made by the agency. Your dossier cannot be processed. Then, please click the Download Submission Report link and go to the second page of the submission report, where you can find listed all the failed business rules. There is no need to panic here. You can submit as many times as needed, and there is no fee charged related to these business rules failures. There is no deadline issued to business rules failures, but of course, the Reach IT deadline of 31st of May this year should be respected. These are some tips on what to do if your initial dossier has failed business rules. First of all, identify the failure. Go to Substance Dataset. After the dossier is created, the information cannot be modified anymore. This means that you have to modify some information in the dossier. You have to go back to the Substance Dataset and create a new dossier from there. Then you need to correct it and create a new initial submission. Please do not tick the submission is an update box. and in the end, it is important to run the TCC plugin. After we have passed the business rule step, then comes the technical completeness check. We perform technical completeness check according to Article 20 of REACH regulation. Technical completeness check is part of the overall completeness check of your dossier. The overall completeness check of your dossier also includes the financial completeness check. When we verify your dossier at technical completeness check step, we ensure the presence of information in your dossier. Please note, ECHA does not assess your dossier at this stage. In other words, to have a compliant dossier is different than to have a compliant. To have a complete dossier is different than to have a compliant dossier. How does the process of technical completeness check work? First of all, your dossier must successfully pass a business rule step. Then, according to REACH, we perform the technical completeness check on your dossier within 21 days. However, if your dossier is submitted 2 months before the registration deadline, then we can perform technical completeness check within 3 months. In the cases when your dossier is not complete, then we will send you an update request letter, and that will be done through REACH IT. In our letter, we will inform you about the time you have to resubmit your dossier. We will provide you with the list of missing information, and we will also give you instructions on how to proceed. In the letter, you will find links to manuals and guidance. Please note, in technical completeness check step, you have only one possibility to update your dossier. Don't panic. If the dossier fails, you have 4 months to prepare the registration update. It doesn't need to be submitted by the registration deadline of 31st of May this year. What do you have to remember when you resubmit your technical completeness check requested update? Please do it within the deadline indicated in our letter. If you miss the deadline, we will reject your dossier. When you are creating the Euclid dossier for your requested update, please bear in mind to indicate the dossier that the dossier is a requested update, to insert the correct last submission number and the correct communication number. And of course, you can find all the necessary information to succeed in our update request letter. The next step for your member dossier is the financial completeness check. During the time your dossier undergoes technical completeness check, an invoice is issued. If you want to have a successful registration, you should pay your invoice within the deadline. The initial deadline to pay your invoice is 14 days after your invoice is issued. If you submit your registration dossier between April and May this year, your initial due date will be 30 days from the creation of the invoice. If for some reason you do not pay your invoice within the initial due date, then the deadline is automatically extended 60 more days. Then a reminder will be sent to you. We only issue electronic invoices through REACH IT. And for this purpose, please check your REACH IT message box. The invoice will indicate all chargeable such items such as registration fee and any confidentiality claims. The registration fee is determined by the type of your registration. Also, the tonnage band is important, your company size, whether you submit an initial or an update, whether this is an individual or a joint submission. And at the end, the fee depends on confidentiality claims you may have in your dossier. If you want to have an estimation to the fee you will have to pay, you can use the fee calculation plugin. You can find it for free in the Euclid website. The plugin simulates the invoicing process. However, please keep in mind the final fee which you need to pay is specified in the invoice issued by ECHA. In order to predict the fee for your registration dossier, you need to run the fee calculation plugin in your Euclid dossier. Before you submit your dossier, it's important to verify your company-specific information in Reach IT. Double-check your billing organization name, billing address, and VAT number. Please also make sure that you claim a correct company size. For example, if you're a small and a medium-sized company, you will benefit from lower fees. The definition of small and medium-sized enterprises is according to a European Commission recommendation. If you want to know whether your company is small and medium-sized, we encourage you to make the online SME test on the website indicated on this slide. As I already mentioned, small and medium-sized companies benefit from discounts from their fees. If you claimed that your company is an SME, this should be valid at the time of your submission. Also, please notify us in case if any mistake related to your SME status. At the end, it is important to know that ECHA performs formal small and medium-sized enterprises verification once your substance has been registered. When your dossier has passed all the previous steps, then ECHA issues a final decision. If your dossier is accepted for processing, you receive a decision letter from us. As I mentioned before, the overall completeness of your dossier depends on whether your registration passed technical and financial completeness check. Depending on the overall completeness check outcome, we send you either a positive or a negative decision. Please note, a member gets his registration number only after the lead registrant is successful. When the overall completeness check outcome is positive, ECHA sends you a final positive decision letter. Then we assign a registration number for your substance, and the information is stored in our databases. If you want to monitor the progress of your submission in Reach IT, you can go to Reach IT homepage. Then go to your message box folder. Open the message. Click on the Download Submission Report link. And that will lead you to the submission report. There you can see on which exact step is your dossier. At the end, some more words about the confidentiality claim requests some of you may have. Information listed in Article 119.1 of the REACH regulation is always published. In order to understand which information from your registration will be published on ECHA's website, we advise you to use the Euclid dissemination plugin. Information listed in Article 119.2 of REACH regulation can be claimed confidential. If you have made a confidentiality claim in your dossier, then a fee for this claim is triggered. Also, you are required to provide adequate justification for the claim. The fee depends on the claim type, the size of your company, and the joint submission status. In order to estimate the fee for your confidentiality claim, we advise you to use the Euclid fee calculation plugin. For further information on dissemination and confidentiality claims, please feel free to visit ECHA's website. There you can find data submission manuals covering these topics. You can also visit the question and answer section on our website. And at the end of my presentation, let me summarize. If you want to submit a successful member dossier, please use all the provided supporting tools as plugins, webinars, manuals, etc. We also strongly advise you to monitor regularly your REACH IT account. Also remember, you need to pass business rule step before the deadline of 31st of May this year. Please make sure that you do the necessary arrangement with your financial department, so you ensure that you pay your invoice within the given due date. Thank you very much. That was my part of the webinar today. Now I will give back the word to my colleague Javier Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Elisa. Thank you very much, Nagendra. I hope all of you found useful these presentations and the main hints and tips and recommendations that we gave there. Now in this closing of the webinar, I will again, for your convenience, summarize the main topics in 2 slides. And the idea here is basically that you could even use this as a checklist when you are preparing your dossiers and just before submitting them to ECHA. So, of course, the first thing, although I hope everyone is aware of that, is that member dossiers, they also need to use Euclid 5. You need to prepare your dossiers in Euclid 5. It's not only the lead who needs to use Euclid 5, but also the members. They need to prepare the member dossier in Euclid and send it through REACH IT. Again, as it was mentioned in both presentations from Nagendra and Elisa, we very strongly recommend you to use the available plugins. The reason is because we've developed these plugins for your benefit, so that you can ensure that your dossier is technically complete, that you can simulate the fee, and you will know how much you will need to pay to get your registration secured, and also that you will simulate in advance which information will be available in the published. So the idea is that by using these 3 plugins, you avoid any unpleasant surprises later on in the process. For you members of a joint submission, also remember that before submitting your member dossiers, you need to confirm first the membership in the joint submission in REACH IT, as it was explained by Nagendra, step by step. Finally, once you have confirmed this membership and prepared your member dossier in Euclid 5, then you need to submit it through REACH IT. And you can only do that after the lead registrant has been accepted in the system. So for that, keep communication with the lead registrant that they tell you when their dossier has been accepted, so you can follow as soon as possible after that. We've been mentioning several times that our communications are done through Reach IT. So for that purpose, it's important to monitor closely your Reach IT account, especially right after submitting your registration dossier, so that you know if your dossier has been accepted or not. I will then recommend you to configure your Reach IT account so you will also receive automatic emails whenever there is a message. That will avoid the need of going into the Reach IT all the time, but you will be alerted by email. But you need to do that because by default does not set up like that. Make sure, of course, that your dossier is accepted for processing before 31st of May 2013. And here again, accepted for processing means that you have passed the business rule step as described by Elisa. And if you face any problem, of course, we are here to help you. You can contact the ECA help desk at any point by filling the web form that is in the website, and we will come back to you as soon as possible. Once again, you have information material in our website where you can find the technical manuals on how to prepare your dossiers and how to submit them. I will especially recommend you data submission manuals 4 and 5, which describe how to build the dossier in Euclid. And also you have all the previous webinars available in the website, including this one, which will be there approximately in 10 days. So you could go again through this webinar and through the PowerPoint presentations if you wish so. Some words now about upcoming events for your information. We are continuing with our webinar program, as you can see in our website. The next ones are taking place on 19th of March with an overview of the CNL platform. Then in April, we will have a webinar on focus on downstream users and their need to report to the European Chemicals Agency. And in April, we will have the third part of the series of how to bring your registration dossier in compliance with REACH, with valuable tips and hints. So stay tuned for these webinars if you are interested in that information. More events, in this case conferences. We are organizing the Stakeholders Day that we regularly do here in Helsinki. It will take place on the 26th of March. And you are able to register now, in case you haven't done it and you are interested in coming here. We will be covering, of course, again, the main topics and main aspects of registration, together with other topics. And there will be also the possibility to ask for one-to-one sessions with ECA staff in case you need tailored help with your preparation for registration. We are also organizing another Stakeholders Day, this time focused on biocides. That will take place on the 25th of June. And for any other events, please subscribe to our new e-news, and then you will be informed instantly of all the activities that are taking place here in the European Chemicals Agency. For the questions and answers, you've been able to send any questions you had on the topic of this webinar during all this time. Now I will ask you to don't send it anymore, at least through the Q&A panel, so that we have time to reply to all of you, also through the Q&A panel. In case you have any question from now on, I will ask you to send it through our ECA help desk. And we will reply to you through our normal help desk way, meaning that we will reply within 15 days by email to you. It seems that somehow the slides disappeared, but hopefully we'll be able to see them now. Yes, here we are. So yeah, that was about it, about the questions. We will reply to all the questions we received through the Q&A panel, so please stay logged in until you receive a question from us, an answer from us, sorry. And as always, once we finish this webinar, you will have the opportunity to provide your feedback on this webinar. That's, as you can imagine, very important for us because we are very interested to know how useful these webinars are for you and which topics you would like us to cover because you are interested in them. So please take the time to fill in the survey and provide all your feedback to us. That was all for this webinar. I hope you find useful information during this webinar. And for those of you, please stay tuned to receive an answer if you made any question. And anyway, you will always have the ECA help desk to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.